Tune Review Print Speaking to the Blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @TuneReview, that is @CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@tunereview.com, that is INFORMATION@CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
This is from the Herald on Wednesday, the 1st of February 2023. This is from the news section. The headline is Invergordon Academy, School Closed After Unexploded Device Found. This article is by Jodie Harrison. A school in the Highlands has been shut down after an unexploded device was found in the area. Emergency services are currently in attendance at Castle Terrace, Invergordon, after an unexploded ordnance was discovered on Wednesday morning. The Explosive Ordnance Disposal EOD were called to the scene. Nearby Invergordon Academy has been locked down and the public have been urged to stay away from the area. The school tweeted that it had closed due to an ongoing police incident. A statement on the school's website also states Invergordon Academy will be closed today, the 1st of February 2023, due to an ongoing police incident. We expect to be back open tomorrow. A Police Scotland spokesperson said emergency services are in attendance at Castle Terrace, Invergordon, after an unexploded ordnance was found. A cordon has been put in place and EOD have been contacted. Police in Invergordon are currently dealing with an incident at Castle Avenue, and as a result a portion of the road between the junctions of Gordon Terrace and Academy Road is shut. Davison Drive is also shut, with no vehicular or pedestrian traffic permitted. Invergordon Academy will be closed until this incident reaches a conclusion. Members of the public are requested to stay away from the area in the meantime. That article was by Jodie Harrison. This is from the Herald on the 1st of February 2023. This is from the news section. The headline reads, Profits set to sparkle as Iron Brew maker Bar gets acquisition boost. This article is by Christy Dorsey. Scottish soft drinks giant AG Bar said full-year profits are set to beat expectations, helped by price hikes and an initial contribution from its newly acquired Boost Drinks brand. The Iron Brew maker said all four of its divisions, Bar Soft Drinks, Funkin', Boost and fellow recent acquisition MoMA, contributed to a strong second half-year performance amid steady demand for its cocktail mixes and beverages. Revenue growth is expected to continue in the coming financial year, though the group did issue a few words of caution to flatten expectations. Along with the backdrop of continued high inflation, Bar also flagged the forthcoming introduction of the Deposit Return Scheme, DRS, which will take effect in Scotland later this year. Both have the potential to impact consumer behaviour, the company said. Scotland's DRS is set to come into force on August the 16th and will require consumers to pay a deposit of an additional 20p for every beverage purchased in a single-use container from a size of a 50ml up to 3 litres. The deposit can be recovered after the empty container is returned to a collection point operated under the scheme. Drinks manufacturers such as Bar will have to track their products with specialised labels, as they will be required to report the number of containers they place on the Scottish market. It is claimed this will lead to significant additional costs. Our internal implementation planning for DRS is well advanced, and we believe our strong brand portfolio and ongoing actions to mitigate inflation will support the delivery of our growth ambitions, Bar said in a trading update to investors. While we expect there to be an impact on operating margin as a result of inflationary cost pressures and a short-term dilutive impact from the Boost acquisition, we will continue to invest in the long-term growth of our brands. The Cumbernauld-based company is forecasting revenues of £315 million for the year to January 28, with profits slightly ahead of market expectations. Analysts had previously been anticipating a pre-tax profit of £42.6 million on turnover of £302 million. Bar raised prices last year to deal with surging costs as it benefited from greater at-home consumption of food and drink. Pre-made cocktail brand Funkin saw a strong recovery in bar and restaurant sales, while at-home sales also grew despite the lifting of COVID lockdown measures. The company significantly increased its presence in the energy drinks market with last year's acquisition of Boost in a deal worth up to £32 million. Boost specialises in high-growth functional beverage categories spanning energy, sport and protein, and has a strong position in the UK independent retail channel. Bar acquired an initial 61.8% stake in MoMA in December 2021. It took over the business outright a year later, paying £3.4 million for the remaining 32.2% that it didn't previously own. A strong balance sheet means the group has far more firepower to pursue further non-organic growth opportunities if they arise, analysts at Hargreaves Lansdown said in a note to investors. We like Bar's focus on faster growing niche areas of the industry. MoMA, which AG Bar acquired in December 2021, is a producer of oat milk, a sector growing at over 10% annually, with 1 in 3 British consumers now drinking plant-based milk. Chief Executive Roger White said the group remains confident of delivering further profit growth. Thanks to a contribution from all our teams, we have performed strongly across the year, he said. This positive performance has been supported by continued brand investment and great sales execution. We have accelerated the development of the business, further building our portfolio of differentiated brands with the acquisition of Boost and taking full ownership of MoMA. As we enter a new financial year, we are well placed to continue to develop and grow through our clear and consistent value-driven strategy. The company will announce its full year results on March 28th. Shares in Bar closed yesterday's trading more than 4% higher, up 23p at 550p. That article was by Christy Dorsey. This is from the Herald on Wednesday the 1st of February 2023. This is from the news section. The headline reads, Strikes Scotland, 500,000 walkout in biggest action in decades. This article is by Jodie Harrison. Around 500,000 workers across Scotland are set to down tools in a coordinated day of strike action. Civil servants, higher education staff, teachers, some rail operators and coffee makers will walk out on Wednesday as part of a nationwide defence of the right to strike, organised by the Trade Union Congress, TUC. The Scottish Trade Union Congress, STUC, estimates 500,000 workers across Scotland will walk out in what is the biggest day of coordinated strike action in decades. Around 100,000 civil servants will walk out across the UK for one day of action across most government departments, the PCS union said, including staff working at the Scottish Parliament in Edinburgh and the Scottish Government. It comes in response to UK government legislation which will seek to limit strike action and allow employers to put in place minimum levels of service during strikes. The SNP, Conservatives and Liberal Democrats have previously said they will be attending as normal. The Scottish Greens and Scottish Labour will not be participating in parliamentary business on Wednesday. Maggie Chapman, Green MSP for North East Scotland, said, The Scottish Greens stand firmly with striking workers. We will not cross any virtual or physical picket lines and hope that MSPs from all parties will join us in that. With the Tories introducing a range of new and repressive anti-trade union legislation, it is more vital than ever that we stand in unity and solidarity. So many of our existing rights have been won by working people coming together and taking action. Whether it is minimum wage, paid holidays or weekends, all of these rights have been hard fought and won by organised, unionised workers. Trade unions have done so much for every single one of us, which is why we must support them. Courts and tribunals may also see disruption, but those due to attend court on Wednesday have been advised to do so, the Crown Office and Prosecution Service said. Higher education workers will also walk out as part of their ongoing dispute over pension, pay and conditions. Members of the University and College Union, the UCU, at the majority of Scotland's universities will take strike action. Some train company workers have also walked out, affecting some services to Scotland. Train drivers in Aslef and the Rail, Maritime and Transport Union, RMT, are embroiled in a long-run dispute over pay and conditions. A recent offer of a 4% pay rise for last year and another 4% this year was rejected, with the unions arguing that conditions attached to the proposed deal, such as compulsory Sunday working, were never going to be accepted. Aslef argues that more train drivers should be employed, but claims rail operators find it cheaper to pay staff overtime to work on Sundays. Services will be severely affected on Wednesday and again on Friday during a second strike, with some areas having no trains at all and those that do run will start later and finish earlier than usual. However, ScotRail says services will operate as normal on Wednesday. David Simpson, ScotRail Service Delivery Director, said no ScotRail services will be affected by this week's upcoming strike action. It is disappointing to see more widespread disruption across Great Britain, at a time when the railway needs to be doing everything it can to encourage more people to travel by train. The dispute between the trade unions and other train operators does not involve any ScotRail staff, which means ScotRail services will operate as normal on Wednesday the 1st and Friday the February the 3rd. LNER is running a limited service from Edinburgh south of the border, but no trains will run any further north than Edinburgh. Avanti West Coast has advised customers not to travel on Wednesday or Friday. Barry Milsom, Executive Director of Operations and Safety at Avanti West Coast, said on February 1st and 3rd, "We won't be able to run any trains as a result of this industrial action, and our customers are advised not to travel. Services will also be impacted on February 2nd, with a revised timetable in place, and customers should check before they travel on this date. We all need to work with each other to find a solution which will benefit our people and customers. It is essential that as an industry we continue to talk with RMT and ASLEF about industry reform so we can develop together a railway fit for the 21st century. School strikes will continue in Clackmannanshire and Aberdeen as part of the 16-day rolling strike action by the EIS union. The union says there still has been no constructive talks on pay, with the Scottish Government maintaining that the demands of 10% are unaffordable. Wednesday's National Day of Action will culminate in a Right to Strike rally organised by the STUC and will be addressed by SNP Westminster leader Stephen Flynn, Scottish Labour leader Anis Sarwar and STUC General Secretary Ros Foyer. Rallies will also take place in Glasgow, Edinburgh and Dundee throughout the day. Ms Foyer said across the country 500,000 workers, in partnership with the TUC National Day of Action against this bill, are striking in one of the biggest displays of worker power we've seen in generations. The Tories have given workers the length and breadth of Scotland the clearest indication yet that they are running scared of our ability to fight and organise for a better future. Far from dismembering our movement, the UK Government have empowered it. We will make that abundantly clear to them tomorrow at our national rally. Business Secretary Grant Sharp said, "The first job of any government is to keep the public safe, because whilst we absolutely believe in the ability to strike, we are duty-bound to protect the lives and livelihoods of the British people. I am introducing a bill that will give government the power to ensure that vital public services will have to maintain a basic function by delivering minimum safety levels, ensuring that lives and livelihoods are not lost. We do not want to have to use this legislation unless we have to, but we must ensure the safety of the British public." That article was by Jodie Harrison.
From the Herald Scotland, Wednesday the 1st of February 2023, from the Voices section, Herald Diary, foiled by the haggis that fought back. Compiled by Lorne Jackson. Hardcore haggis. Diary Towers is a proudly Scottish abode. The wallpaper is tartan, deer antlers are affixed to the top of every computer screen, and over the tannoy system a bootleg version of Lewis Capaldi singing "Donald Where's Your Trousers" plays in a continuous loop. Most importantly, our office doesn't enjoy a solitary Burns night. We celebrate Burns Year, which happens to be every year. This helps explain why we're still publishing yarns related to bardic revelries, even though the 25th of January is long vanished. Says Gordon Casely, "Some years ago in Garlogie Village Hall, I was in mid-flow and brought down the dirk, intent on slashing open the beastie. The dirk not only bounced back, but in blunted form." Adds Gordon, "Nobody had told me I was suggesting a deep frozen version." His dirk never regained its composure and remains in traumatised shock. Worm's Eye View. A diary reference to an old adage inspires Russell Smith from Wales to ponder the following. "I was brought up to believe that the early bird catches the worm," he said. "Strangely, nobody mentioned that it's the early worm that gets caught." Initially confused, we mentioned that Perthshire thespian Alan Cumming returned the OBE he was awarded by the late Queen, having realised, exceedingly late in the day, that OBE stands for Order of the British Empire, and that the British Empire was a rather controversial enterprise. We're now positing the theory that Alan must have originally assumed the initials OBE meant something entirely different. Says reader Kim Dunn, he probably thought they stood for Blind from Elizabeth. Mind your language. Frustrated reader Mary Fraser gets in touch to say, "The fact that some people can't distinguish between etymology and entomology bugs me in ways I can't put into words." Will Witherings, more fun with the English language. Reader Barry Shaw spotted a fox in his garden. His teenage son wanted to go out and pet it. "You can't do that," explained Barry. "It's a feral animal." His son looked at him in confusion, had never heard of such a thing. So Barry explained what he was talking about. "Oh right," replied his son. "I thought it had something to do with that Hollywood actor. You know, Will Ferrell." Dreaded desert drama. We advise you to clasp the hand of a loved one at this point, for it's time for a truly terrifying tale. "I spotted my yogurt floating across the kitchen," says reader Helen Graham. "Must have been paranormal activity." And that was today's Herald Diary, compiled by Lauren Jackson.
Herald Scotland recorded on Wednesday, 1st of February 2023. Arts and Entertainments. Russell T Davies on getting justice for Crossroads star Noelle Gordon by Herald Magazine. Walking into the first rehearsals of Nolly, the new drama which tells the story of soap actress Noelle Gordon, was like feeling the ground rock beneath my feet, says creator Russell T Davies. Entering the room, he was met with what felt like the reincarnated characters of the soap Crossroads, in which Gordon, better known to her friends as Nolly, starred, causing fond memories to flood back from his adolescence. I had to have a little 20 seconds to myself, sitting in a chair and not saying anything, because it was quite strange, says the Doctor Who writer, 59, who also created 11-time BAFTA-nominated It's a Sin. It was like feeling the ground rock beneath my feet, because I genuinely love Crossroads. Davies says he was ready for years to tell the story of Noelle Gordon, as he was obsessed with the pioneering soap opera in which she played Meg Mortimer from 1964 to 1981. In Nolly, a 3-part drama starring Helena Bonham Carter in the title role, coming to streaming platform ITVX, he has documented the rise and fall of the actress, who was controversially sacked at the age of 61 after 19 years on Crossroads. Likening it to a story of a queen losing her crown, he explains, "I think the more I work in television, the more I work with actors, the more mysterious that treatment seems. We've all seen actors being chucked out of soaps, and we've all seen people falling from grace, but the very public and ruthless nature of that seemed odder and odder as time went on." Davies recalls a lovely lockdown spent largely on video calls chatting to the cast of the original soap, investigating the story. It was then he realised how much Gordon was loved by fellow cast members and yet treated so badly by the system. "Part of the reason I got interested in the story was, in the industry, she's very much spoken of as a bit of a monster," he muses. "And yet when I went and spoke to the cast, the opposite picture came out. I thought, you've given me the public version, but I scratched and I realised it was true. She was adored." Of course, there's the whole Me Too movement, which is brilliant and vital and needed, but actually I think the sexual stories are just scratching the surface of how women are treated. They're not always treated badly because of a sexual story. The whims and tempers of men are vast, and that's what happened to Nolly. Davies adds that despite loving Gordon in the soap, which was set in a motel in the Midlands, he had no idea the breadth of her experience. He says, "To me, she was just a soap star, but it turns out she has an extraordinary history. She was the first woman in the world to appear in colour television, put there by John Logie Baird himself, the first woman in Britain to interview a Prime Minister, and the first woman to have her own daytime chat show. She was properly a trailblazer, and also a theatre star, makes her sacking all the more shocking." BAFTA and Emmy winner Bonham Carter, 56, says she found Gordon to be an extraordinary woman who showed gumption and fierceness after her sacking. "I honestly didn't particularly know Noelle Gordon until I read Russell's script, and she came into my life like a life force straight from page 1. I thought, why the hell have I not been aware of her? She told it how it was. She was really appallingly badly treated, and she said exactly what she felt. She wasn't going to be bullied. Any other person might have crumbled. She didn't." Talking about casting Bonham Carter, Davies says, "My lovely producer Nicola Schindler was very clever. She said, let's try Helena Bonham Carter, and I just thought there wouldn't be a chance in the world. And then miracle of miracles, we couldn't believe we were so lucky." Also joining the cast is Augustus Prew, who recently appeared in The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. In Nolly, he plays Welsh actor Tony Adams, who starred in Crossroads, and he describes the invaluable meetings he had with the actor before portraying him in the series. He's a magical man. He was just so progressive for his time, and I just wanted to honour his spirit, notes Prue. He loves his mother. He sort of idolises powerful women, which was the opposite of the time. It's a time of action movies, and it's the beginning of big muscles, and Tony is this wonderful breath of fresh air that at the time was very contrary to what was going on. Bonham Carter praises Davies as the champion of the underdog, adding, I know he felt that Nolly deserved better treatment than what she'd received in real life. This is a proper send-off. Bonham Carter says Nolly just fizzed off the page of Davies' script, adding that it was a sensational piece of writing. I do think she was in her prime when she was sacked, she adds. I feel like championing her means that I'm championing every woman of a certain age who might be cut off because we're deemed too old. It was an era thing, but I do think we've still got to get equal pay, and people get bumped off because of age. The actress known for her roles in Harry Potter, Fight Club and Sweeney Todd explained how she cultivates characters inside her in the hope they pop out when the camera turns on, and says she wore fake teeth to help her prepare mentally for the role. Now she jokes she could compete in quiz show Mastermind with her knowledge of Gordon. She's quite useful because she legitimises my bossy side, concludes Bonham Carter. I've loved having her around. I don't think my family have, because she's got an engine to her. I hope she carries on. She'll help me out. Nolly launches on ITVX on Thursday. By Herald Scotland. Herald Scotland recorded on Wednesday, 1st of February 2023. Arts and Entertainments. Theatre Review. Bus Regulation, the Musical. Strathclyde. Platform. By Neil Cooper, Theatre Critic. Theatre. Bus Regulation, the Musical. Strathclyde. Platform, Easterhouse. Neil Cooper, 4 stars. Once upon a time, the idea of running a regular bus service to some of Glasgow's outlying areas might have seemed a fanciful notion. These days, well, things have changed enough so it's possible to take a trip to see Ellie Harrison's glorious piece of agitprop theatre. It's been something of a bumpy ride getting here. Bus Regulation, the Musical. Strathclyde. Cops its moves from Andrew Lloyd Webber's Starlight Express to whiz through more than half a century of civic calamities on the road to the mess of bus privatisation that exists today. This is done largely through the narration of Nellie the Clippy, played with effervescent brio by Katie Thompson. Nellie steers us through the rocky road from municipal ownership of buses to the deregulation that ushered in the mess of privatisation that exists today. This is illustrated by an 8-piece ensemble of skaters drawn from 3 local roller derby clubs, Glasgow Roller Derby, Mean City Roller Derby and Sugar and Spin Skate Crew. The result is a fun and informative half-hour that lays bare the roots of the ongoing absurdities of a system hijacked to benefit company shareholders rather than the tax-paying citizens who pay for them. Those responsible are booed like pantomime villains as Nellie names the guilty, while the skaters don various coloured capes and logos to mark the changes. Originally presented in Manchester in 2019, Harrison has adapted the show for Glasgow with the aid of the Get Glasgow Moving campaign for better public transport in the city. While there are sadly no songs to flesh things out, this fact-filled extravaganza manages to both entertain and enlighten in a way that highlights how public services are being asset stripped in plain sight. This makes for a vitally of-the-moment piece of serious fun that is well worth the fare. By Neil Cooper.
From the Herald Scotland, Thursday the 2nd of February 2023. From the news section, ScotRail, man arrested after train hits car on level crossing. Report by Emma Sabliak. A man has been arrested after a train hit a car on a level crossing. The 12:36pm ScotRail service from Elgin to Inverness smashed into the vehicle at the Lower Clarney level crossing on Tuesday at 1:36pm. No one was injured, but ScotRail services between Inverness and Aberdeen were subject to delays and alterations. British Transport Police attended the scene to investigate, and the force has now confirmed a man was arrested. A spokesperson said, a 49-year-old man was arrested at the scene on suspicion of dangerous driving, and has since been charged. Phil Campbell, ScotRail's head of customer operations, said, "We're sorry to customers who experienced disruption to their journey as a result of this incident, where thankfully no one was injured. I take this opportunity to remind people to be vigilant, remain alert, and always follow the rules when crossing the tracks." And that report was by Emma Sabliak.
The Glasgow Times on Thursday, the 2nd of February 2023. Glasgow man attacked ScotRail staff and passenger on train. An article by Lauren Brownlee and read by me, Corey. A man who attacked ScotRail employees and a train passenger has been sentenced in court. Jason Jack, 29, pleaded guilty to assaulting 3 members of the Travel Safe team and 1 member of the public on April 15, 2022, after being challenged on his antisocial behaviour. The attacks took place in a train travelling between Paisley, Gilmore Street and Hillington East. 1 member of the Travel Safe team had to spend a night in hospital due to an injury. Jack, from the city's East End, appeared at Glasgow Sheriff Court on Monday and was ordered to carry out 160 hours of unpaid work and pay 2 of the victims £250 in compensation each. Martin Graham, BTP Detective Constable, said, "Assaults on train staff and passengers will not be tolerated on the rail network." 3 members of rail staff and a man suffered minor injuries as a result of the assault. Jack was apprehended following a thorough police investigation. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the 2 brave members of the public who intervened on the service to assist the ScotRail staff members prior to officers arriving at the scene. If it was not for their intervention, this horrendous assault on the ScotRail staff members, merely carrying out their duty, could have been much worse. David Lister, ScotRail Safety, Engineering and Sustainability Director, added, "This conviction reaffirms that abuse on railway staff, whether that's physical violence, verbal assault or any other form, will not be tolerated on Scotland's railways. Everyone has the right to go about their day in peace. And we'd encourage anyone who's subject to or witnesses antisocial behaviour to contact our BTP to ensure that those responsible are brought to justice." That article was written by Lauren Brownlee and it was read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times on Thursday, the 2nd of February 2023. Scottish Water charges on top of council tax to increase in April. An article written by Stuart Patterson and read by me, Corey. The water charge added to council tax bills will raise by 5% from April. Scottish Water has announced the hike to pay for water supply and wastewater services. It means that on top of the council tax, which is yet to be set, a Band D home in Glasgow will pay £502 for the year. Band B, which most properties in Glasgow are in, will see a £390 bill on top of the council tax. The highest level, Band H, will pay £1,004 for water charges on top of the council tax. Council tax bills are expected to rise when the council's budget is set later this month, to help plug a budget shortfall in tens of millions of pounds this year. Scottish Water said the increase in its charges amounts to an average of 37p per week. That works out at £20 a year increase. Douglas Milliken, Chief Executive of Scottish Water, said, "Our core service play a vital role in the daily lives of millions of people in Scotland. Our responsibility as a publicly funded body is focused on providing excellent service and water quality and reducing our impact on the environment on which we depend." The charges for 2023/24 have been set at a level which recognises the need for significant future investment to protect services and the current economic challenges faced by many. Charge levels in the future are likely to rise to meet our strategic objectives, meet the needs of our customers, and to transform services so that they become as environmentally and financially sustainable as possible. This is followed by a table which I will read out as the band, the water supply cost, the water waste cost, and the combined services cost. Band A, water supply cost £154.98. Water waste cost £179.88. Combined service £334.86. Band B, water supply cost £180.81. Water waste cost £209.86. Combined service £390.67. Band C, £206.64 water supply. Water waste is £239.84 and combined service is £446.48. Band D, water supply is £232.47, waste water is £269.82, and the combined services price is £502.29. Band E, water supply is £284.13, waste water is £329.78, and combined service is £613.91. Band F, water supply cost £335.79, water waste £389.74, combined services £725.53. Band G, water supply £387.45. Waste water is £449.70. Combined service is £837.15. Band H, £464.94 for water supply. Waste water is £539.64, and the combined services is £1,004.58. That article was written by Stuart Patterson and read by me, Corey.
From the Herald Scotland, Saturday the 4th of February 2023, from the sports section, England 23, Scotland 29. Calcutta Cup returns north once again. Report by David Barnes. This is becoming a wonderful habit. Long may it continue. Although it would be nice to back it up against Wales next weekend, this time. Giant South African winger Duhan van der Merwe will be the toast of his adopted country for days to come, after his two sensational tries stretched Scotland's winning streak over England to 3 matches on the bounce. Remarkably, they have won 4 and drawn 1 of the last 6. But, really, it was a 22-man effort from Gregor Townsend's heroes. After waiting 38 years to beat the old enemy on their own patch, Scotland has now done it twice on the trot, and this one is arguably even more impressive than the 2021 triumph because it was achieved in front of a full house at Twickenham with no COVID restrictions to nullify England's home advantage. This is only the 6th time they have won, ever, at RFU HQ. After a cagey first 15 minutes, Scotland broke the deadlock with the first meaningful attack of the contest, scored off field position secured by good work from Hugh Jones to bring Ollie Chesham-Collins in full flight down, and even better work by Stuart Hogg to get over the ball and win a penalty in the deck. At the resultant line-out, George Turner sent a long throw over the top to Jamie Ritchie, who fed Finn Russell, who sent Jones through a yawning gap. The centre didn't make the line this time, but an offload to Kel Stern kept that attack going, and when the ball came back right 2 phases later, Sion Tuipulotu poked an excellent grubber kick into the in-goal area for Jones to coolly finish off. Russell converted. England rallied, aided by a tricky bounce of Max Mallin's hack ahead, which caught out Russell and pushed Scotland back into a desperate rearguard effort, and the home pressure finally paid off, where Marcus Smith popped a diagonal over the top, which found Malins unmarked on the right. Farrell pulled the conversion to the left of the posts, meaning Scotland stayed narrowly ahead, and then came an astonishing intervention from Duhan van der Merwe. When Stein collected an England clearance on the right and passed infield to van der Merwe, it looked like nothing much was on, but the big winger had other ideas and set off an amazing run from 5 metres inside his own half, shrugging off 5 English tacklers on his way to the line, including an embarrassingly weak effort right at the end from home number 8, Alex Drumbrandt. A truly great moment, but Russell missed the conversion and England managed to sneak ahead in the final 5 minutes before the break. They attacked off turnover ball, pulling Scotland in with several powerful thrusts before sending possession to the right for Lewis Ludlam to send Mallins in for his second with a well-timed pass. This time Farrell pushed the conversion to the right of the kindling, but England won a penalty from the restart and worked their way back into the Scotland's 22, and when WP Nail was called for coming in at the side, Farrell had no problem getting home the 3 points. England carried their momentum into the start of the second half, aided by a glut of Scottish penalties, as the visiting pack struggled to contain the home team's power at this point, and the host stretched further ahead when Ellis Gage muscled over from close range. But Drumbrandt fumbled the restart, handing Scotland an attacking scrum from which Scotland attacked with real ambition, and it took a slice of luck, but their ambition was rewarded when Ben White tidied up scrappy ruck ball and pirouetted out of 2 tackles to score. Russell's conversion brought it back to a 1-point game. Scotland had England scrambling in defence when Hogg threatened on the right, but his pass back inside was behind Stein, and that opportunity fizzled out. A penalty conceded by replacement prop Simon Bergen for hands on the ruck right in front of his own posts allowed Farrell to stretch England's lead back out to 4 points with just over 15 minutes to go. Scotland were still very much in the contest, and Russell almost put Stein over on the right, but his cross kick had just a bit too much on it. Play was brought back for an earlier offside penalty, which allowed Russell to reduce the gap once again to a solitary point. And then came the game's decisive moment, when Russell first released Stein on the right touchline, and then fired another devilish flat pass to the left, which opened up all the space Van der Merwe had needed. It was by no means a walk-in, but the giant South African is deadly when given half an inch with just 10 yards to make, and he swatted off white jerseys as if they were flies. With just 4 minutes to go, all Scotland needed to do was close the door, which is, of course, much easier said than done. England spent those tense final few moments camped deep inside the away team's 22, but England stood strong, and when Jamie Richard got over Ben Arrell on the deck to earn a penalty, which finally secured the win, the stadium erupted as if it was Murrayfield. The attendance for the match was 81,545. And that was a report by David Barnes, read to you today by me, Ian. From the Herald Scotland, Sunday the 5th of February 2023, from the sports section, St Johnstone 1, Celtic 4, instant reaction to the burning issues, report by Matthew Lindsay. With no cinched Premiership matches being played next weekend due to the 5th round of the Scottish Cup, Celtic were keen to avoid a slip-up against St Johnstone in Perth today and restore their 9-point advantage over Rangers. They duly did both, and Postecoglou's team cruised a comfortable 4-1 win over Callum Davidson's side at McDiarmid Park that extended their unbeaten domestic run to 21 and edged them a little closer to another Scottish title. An Andrew Constantine own goal and Kyogo Furuhashi and Aaron Mooy strikes in the first half effectively wrapped up another 3 points for the visitors by half-time. Ray Wright pulled one back for the hosts with a stunning long-range effort, but substitute David Turnbull netted an injury time to round off a satisfying afternoon for the leaders. Here are 5 talking points from the Premiership encounter. Mooey machine. Celtic fans have been heartened to learn the Parkhead club are in talks with Joe Hart, Mooey and Turnbull about extensions to their current deals. All 3 men have been excellent for the Scottish champions this season. Mooey in particular is enjoying a rich vein of form. That continued in Perth today. The Australian internationalist was involved in the build-up to the opening 2 goals and then scored the third himself. His strike was exquisite. He controlled a chip from Jota before dinking over the head of St Johnstone goalkeeper Remy Matthews. The 32-year-old midfielder failed to net once in his first 23 appearances after joining the Glasgow side on a free transfer in the summer. He has now been on target 6 times in 9 outings. 3 of those came from the penalty spot. Still, his vastly improved strike rate underlines just how influential he has become. Mooey barely put a foot wrong all afternoon. He is comfortable in possession, distributes the ball intelligently, and is a physical presence in the middle of the park. The 57 times capped footballer is under contract until 2025, but if Celtic can persuade him to commit to his future to them beyond that, it will increase their chances of long-term success. Relentless Furuhashi. There are few players with a chance of finishing the season as the Premiership's top scorer. Bojan Miovski of Aberdeen took his tally to 14 in the 3-1 triumph over Motherwell at Pittodrie yesterday. Lawrence Shanklin moved onto the 17 mark as Hearts defeated Dundee United by the same scoreline at Tynecastle. However, it will be a major surprise if anyone plunders more than Furuhashi this term. The Japanese internationalist has got 19 goals to his name in the league so far, and 22 overall. He has now found the net on 11 occasions in his last 11 outings. There is currently no better finisher in the top flight than this £4.6 million signing. Oh Hyun-gyu came on for Furuhashi in the second half. The South Korean won a free kick for Celtic in a dangerous area just outside the St Johnstone penalty box and earned the hapless Constantine a red card from referee David Dickinson. His fellow replacement Turnbull duly took advantage of the set piece to add to the finishing touch to a one-sided triumph. Defence breached. Davidson switched from a back three to a back four and brought in Tolly Gallagher at left back in the absence of Celtic loanee Adam Montgomery. It was only the former Liverpool kid's second start and fourth appearance of the season. His lack of game time showed when Daizen Maeda burst forward, cut inside him and supplied Moy before the opening goal. He was unable to prevent Jota from picking out Furuhashi before the second as well. It was a tough cast coming back in after a month out and having to shackle two of the best wide men in the country. But Gallagher and his teammates, despite Nicky Clark not being involved, certainly asked questions of their rivals in the final third. Right into Celtic's run of 6 games without conceding a goal when he beat Hart from fully 25 yards out in the first half. Not keeping a clean sheet was the only negative for the league leaders. Could Hart have got a hand to the St Johnstone's midfielder's dipping attempt, and his view was blocked by Stevie May? But could the goalkeeper have done better? He will be disappointed to be beaten in such a manner and eager to atone for his lapse in concentration in the cup game against St Mirren on Saturday. Pitch battle. Davidson admitted before kick-off that the McDermott Park playing surface is not the easiest to play on, and his opposite number Postecoglou confessed it is something we will have to adjust to. The park cut up badly from kick-off and made it difficult for both sides to get the ball down and play. Both Celtic and St Johnstone deserve credit for the entertaining passages of play they produced during the course of the 90 minutes. But players need good conditions underfoot to entertain supporters, and at the moment they are fighting a pitch battle every time they take to the field. Relegation threat. This loss leaves St Johnstone just 7 points ahead of Dundee United and Motherwell at the bottom of the Premiership, with 13 games remaining. They played well in spells this afternoon and put the Celtic defence under pressure on several occasions, but they need to start recording victories to avoid being sucked into a relegation dogfight. Their next match is against United at Tannadice in 13 days' time. Beating their local rivals will go a long way towards securing their top flight safety. They are performing far better than a few of the teams around them, but they have work to do. And that article was by Matthew Lindsay.
The Herald on the 3rd of February and the Voices section. Opinion. The NHS has crumbled. We must not be afraid of a new model by Andy McIver. Not much good can be said to have emerged from the wreckage of the COVID crisis. There was, most obviously, the direct deaths it caused and all the turmoil that goes with losing a family member. There was the enforced social exclusion of lockdown, which caused indirect deaths of a magnitude difficult to quantify anytime soon, perhaps ever. There was the loss of school time and social time for children who are at least anecdotally known to have endured mental health crises on a grand scale, not to mention the lost learning which is not being adequately remedied. And, of course, there is the damage COVID did to the NHS. The queues outside GP surgeries, the agonising wait for ambulances, the unfathomable increase in waiting times in emergency departments, and the years and years people wait in daily pain, physically and mentally decaying, as they wait for elective surgery. This is the cloud of COVID. The pandemic has exposed, in the most brutal fashion, the NHS key deficiency, capacity. There was simply not enough slack in the system to cope with the pandemic, and more particularly to cope with its aftermath. But is this a cloud from which we can extract a silver lining? I say yes, the silver lining of a new health service which works. The NHS's capacity problem is not new, nor it is an accident. It is, on the contrary, an integral design feature of this 1948 model of healthcare. The NHS is permanently running hot, based on national capacity to respond to a nationally delivered service, with doctors and nurses run ragged. Before COVID, only a handful of people questioned this model because, as Nigel Lawson said all those years ago, the NHS is the closest thing we have to a religion. Now the faith is being tested. Before COVID, the public discourse on the NHS was such that you'd be forgiven for thinking we were the only country in the world with a hospital. No more. Tracker polling for YouGov shows that only 3 years ago, those who believed the NHS was better than European health services outnumbered the naysayers by 3-1. Today, there are more people who think the NHS is worse than services in our European neighbours than those who think it's better. This feeling is justified, and we should no longer be afraid to say it. We do ourselves no favours by dogmatically refusing to discuss reform. Indeed, I would go as far as to say that those purporting to protect the NHS are in fact killing the concept of universal access, taxpayer-funded healthcare. They are now two sides of the same coin. Let us look at the evidence. Data is king, and data, in this instance, is devastating. The Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, collects comparable data across the developed world and is unquestioned in its accuracy and impartiality. The first obvious conclusion is that the NHS is not underfunded. It receives a greater percentage of our GDP, just over 10, than the OECD average, less than 9. It is not the highest investor by any means, but it is far from the lowest. That, the input, is Exhibit A. However, the rest of the evidence bag is filled with troubling facts about what that investment buys. In general terms, we have poorer outcomes on stroke, heart attack and cancer than our peers. We have fewer doctors than the OECD average, and we are training fewer still. Ireland trains twice the number of doctors per head of population than us. The same is true with nurses. We have less equipment such as MRI and CT scanners than our European friends as well. And here's the real kicker. With only around 2.5 beds for every 1,000 people, we have a little over half the OECD average, and something like 1/3 of the number in France and Germany. Imagine what our waiting times and lists would look like if we had 3 times the number of beds. So why are we getting below average results for the above average investment? The answer, without wishing to be pithy, is that if it looks like a duck, swims like a duck and quacks like a duck, then it probably is a duck. The duck is that we expect a 1948 model of healthcare based on 1948 demographics and 1948 lifestyles to work as we approach 2048. It doesn't. Our run-hot model of maximum efficiency or minimum capacity is not seen anywhere else in Europe. Europeans' decentralised, diverse supply of health services means that the providers are compelled by market forces to create more capacity for the patients they may be able to attract. In our country, when we mention the words market or choice in relation to the NHS, somebody nearby yells privatisation in your face. On the contrary, our European peers provide universal taxpayer-funded access to their health services. Nobody is uninsured, nobody is untreated. It is, in effect, a fusion of centralised demand and decentralised supply, compared with our centralised demand and centralised supply. Core to this ideal is the concept of co-payment, that those who can afford to pay a little extra do so. Europeans do not regard this as elitism. They regard it as an egalitarian duty to pay a little more to access a service of their choice, so that those who cannot afford to do so gain faster access to the core services they need. The stepping stone to this model is already happening. Every day, more employers offer health insurance, and more individuals decide to spend the surprisingly small proportion of their disposable income on private cover. This does not solve the capacity issue, largely because private practitioners and NHS practitioners are often the same people. However, at the margins, it would be free resources for those who need them the most, while we transition to a fully decentralised, capacity-rich system. The NHS is not crumbling. It has already crumbled. It is a Potemkin service, and we must now remove the facades so we can rebuild it from the ground up. That was by Andy McIver.
Hello, this is your reader Jackie. This is the Herald on Monday, the 6th of February 2022 news. Ross and Cole Hamilton published tax returns after Sturgeon call. This article is by Kathleen Nutt. Douglas Ross and Alex Cole Hamilton were first opposition party leaders to publish their tax returns for last year after the SNP made Nicola Sturgeon's public yesterday. The Scottish Tory and Scottish Liberal Democrat leaders released their details hours after the First Minister's tax matters were revealed on the SNP website. Mr Ross published his tax return for the year 2021-22, which showed he earned £72,821 as the MP for Moray. The document also revealed he received £17,223 for his role as a Highlands and Islands MSP. MSPs who hold a dual mandate by also having a seat at Westminster only receive a third of the full MSP salary, with the amount Mr Ross received slightly less than that, as he was not elected to Holyrood till May of 2021, just over a month after the tax year began in April. He did not earn any money as an assistant referee that year, as an injury prevented him officiating at any matches. Mr Cole Hamilton's return revealed he received £57,378 as an MSP during 2021-22, and in addition also received property income of £2,820. He had property expenses of £696. SNP officials accidentally revealed Ms Sturgeon's bank details as they published the documents. 6 years of returns were released on the party's website yesterday morning after the First Minister revealed information going back to 2014. She urged Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Scottish opposition leaders to follow her example. However, the page showing the documents on the SNP website were swiftly deleted after the party was alerted by journalists to the personal and sensitive information having been published. It was later republished with the account number blanked out, along with a pension scheme tax reference number, which had also been visible. The documents show that Ms Sturgeon's only source of income is her salary as First Minister, which now stands at £163,229, and that she earns a very small amount of interest from a Bank of Scotland account. She is taxed on her full salary but receives the value of her 2008-9 pay under a freeze agreed by the Scottish Government after the SNP took power. These documents show clearly that my sole source of income is my job as First Minister, the office which I have the immense privilege of holding, Ms Sturgeon said. I hope other party leaders, including the Prime Minister, will follow suit in an effort to promote transparency in public office. Since April 2009, Scottish ministers have frozen their pay and declined to accept their full salary entitlement, with the remainder going towards public spending. The SNP said this meant the First Minister will forego more than £27,000 of her salary in the current financial year. The documents were published just ahead of the First Minister's latest press conference from St Andrew's House in Edinburgh, where she is due to face questions on a growing controversy over the Scottish Government's gender recognition reforms and an ongoing row over transgender prisoners. The release of the information also comes after a poll published yesterday showed Ms Sturgeon's popularity has slipped in the wake of the bitter debate, and that support for independence as well as for the SNP at Holyrood and Westminster has dropped. It is understood the co-leaders of the Scottish Greens, Patrick Harvie and Lorna Slater, will make their tax returns public. This article is by Kathleen Nutt.
This article is from the Herald on Monday the 6th of February 2023. It's from the opinion section and the headline is "Scotland Be Warned, Canada's euthanasia law has been horrific." The report is by Kevin McKenna. In Scotland, the implacable desire of those seeking to enable people to kill themselves more easily has endured for 13 years. A colossal amount of time, energy and money has been devoted to this project, involving dozens of MSPs, their advisors, the per diem lobbying sector and at least 2 national newspapers. It betokens a culture of death in which the debate around assisted dying is framed in the most callously simplistic manner. Would that a similar quantum of effort and cash had been expended on improving end-of-life care for chronically ill people. But concepts such as funding better and more targeted palliative care have never been permitted to intrude on this debate, nor has the notion that much of what we are told is insufferable pain can be made much more tolerable if our healthcare system prioritised it. Instead, they've chosen the path of least resistance and least cost. The prescription of quick and summary death has replaced a desire to make terminally or chronically ill patients as comfortable as possible. Thus, when patients and their families are at their most helpless, they will enter a realm where the need for an accelerated death has far outstripped any desire to maintain a patient's quality of life in their final days. The world-renowned care specialist, Professor Leonie Herx, has put it much more precisely. I've been practicing palliative medicine for 16 years and I've yet to encounter someone whom I've been unable to help make comfortable at the end of their life, she told me last week. Yet, those who have been the most zealous in promoting Liam MacArthur's assisted dying bill would rather not discuss the ways in which suffering can be eased, life prolonged, and authentic dignity at the end of days maintained. A quick and perfunctory death is much cheaper. Mr MacArthur, the Lib Dem MSP for Orkney, wrote these words on his petition seeking support for his bill. "I believe dying people should have choice about how they die." Here's a better pledge. "I believe dying people are still people and should be given the best treatment the state can provide, and which they've already paid for." You could add that dying people also deserve the full facts about what's really going on here. From Mr MacArthur's own analysis of the public consultation he ran in support of his bill, we can find several glaring gaps and omissions. It says that people living with terminal illness have an increased likelihood of attempting to end their own life, and many do, often alone and in traumatic circumstances. Nowhere is there any suggestion of a suicide prevention campaign to inform terminally ill people of appropriate support networks. There is no stated desire to fund research into the mental health challenges that chronically ill people naturally encounter, or about how to control symptoms. Rather, it marches to a constant drumbeat. Suicide, suicide, suicide. Let's also follow the money on this one. Mr. MacArthur's consultation outlined in seductive detail the financial rewards of legalising euthanasia for the public sector and for business. It cited the cash windfall accruing to the Canadian government of their medical assistance in dying legislation, which amounted to anything between 35 million and 140 million Canadian dollars. This isn't dignity in dying, this is liquidity in dying. The consultation said legislation would particularly increase choice for those on lower incomes, given that the only current equivalent, travel to an organisation such as Dignitas in Switzerland, is expensive. Of course it's expensive. Dignitas is a sort of death spa for the well-heeled. Care, Not Killing, the main organisation opposed to state-assisted suicide, refutes this and points out that Mr. MacArthur's bill would do nothing to tackle the huge financial cost of living with a terminal illness. It cites a report by the Marie Curie Hospice, which found that 2/3 of households affected by terminal illness experience financial strain as a result, and disadvantaged families can spend as much as 98% of their income on the added costs brought by terminal illness. These people are already struggling to live, but rather than help them in their time of greatest need, Mr. MacArthur and his 38 Holyrood co-signatories can only offer them death as a way out. Perhaps the most sinister and chilling proposal in Mr. MacArthur's consultation is the one suggesting that death certificates list underlying illnesses as primary causes of death on the basis that they are public documents. Yet, if assisted dying is as ethical as its proponents claim, then why the need to hide it as the main cause of death? The orchestrated propaganda aimed at cajoling public opinion towards implementation of this bill suggests that professional medical support has begun to swing behind it. Yet, the Royal College of Physicians doesn't support it, and nor does the British Geriatric Society. The Royal College of General Practitioners and the World Medical Association are against it, as is the UK Association for Palliative Medicine, along with many other health bodies. Professor Herx fears that what's being proposed in Scotland may result in the profoundly chilling consequences that Canada is now seeing, 6 years after it passed its own euthanasia bill. In that time, there have been more than 30,000 euthanised killings, including a 35% increase from 2019 to 2020. In Canada, euthanasia now accounts for 2.5% of all deaths. Yet during the slick and well-funded lobbying campaign advocating for the change in legislation, Canadians were told that euthanasia would be an extremely rare event, with projected estimates amounting to a mere 100 or so deaths per year. A grim legislative progression has been evident in the few other countries that have legalised euthanasia. One by one, all the original constraints and safeguards have been eroded, to the extent it has become the default solution for any form of human suffering. The implication of this for people with mental health issues or with complex patterns of physical disability are profoundly disturbing. Once you introduce a cost analysis as part of their care assessments, state-provided euthanasia becomes a beguiling option. Professor Herx offered this to the Canadian Parliament recently. Physicians who know that there are reasonable treatment options for their patients have a professional duty to instill hope and support resilience and not to stimulate a desire to die. My professional integrity as a physician compels me to offer recommendations to promote the health and well-being of my patients. And when you start making highly subjective value judgments on what constitutes a meaningful quality of life, you quickly go through the door marked Department of Eugenics. That report was by Kevin McKenna.
From the Herald, Tuesday the 7th of February 2023, from the news section. Abortion Scotland. Buffer Zones, one of Holyrood's proudest legacies, by Jodie Harrison. The MSP, who is spearheading legislation to introduce buffer zones around abortion clinics in Scotland, said the change will be one of the proudest legacies of devolution. Green MSP Gillian Mackay has brought forward the Abortion Safe Service Access Zones (Scotland) bill in a bid to stop anti-abortion protesters from gathering outside clinics. Nicola Sturgeon has already confirmed the Scottish Government will back the legislation, meaning it should pass through Holyrood. On Tuesday, the First Minister will chair a summit in Edinburgh about the legislation, which will be addressed by both Miss Mackay and former Green MLA Claire Bailey, who was behind the bill that successfully introduced buffer zones in Northern Ireland. The UK Supreme Court ruled in December that the Northern Irish legislation was within Stormont's competence, with this seen as smoothing the way for the Scottish bill. Ms Mackay said the Supreme Court ruling had set a historic precedent, as she told how momentum was increasing about her proposals. Speaking ahead of Tuesday's summit, Ms Mackay said, "The introduction of buffer zones will be one of the proudest legacies of devolution, and I am delighted that we are so close to delivering it." In holding this summit, the First Minister is showing clear leadership and defending the right to choose. I am grateful for her support as momentum around the bill gathers pace. She said the summit would play a key role in ensuring that the bill is put before Holyrood as the best and most robust legislation that it can be, and will introduce a watertight ban on protesters near to abortion clinics. The Central Scotland MSP continued, "Abortion rights are healthcare and they must be protected and expanded. Nobody should be obstructed or harassed when accessing healthcare. Yet far too many people across Scotland have to endure a gauntlet of intimidation and abuse." Ms Mackay said that 12,000 responses received to the consultation on her proposals showed the strength of feeling about the issue, as she added, "It is time to stop the harassment and end these protests for good. The precedent that was set in Northern Ireland was historic, and I hope that Scotland can follow it as soon as possible." This article was by Jodie Harrison. From the Herald, Tuesday the 7th of February 2023, from the news section. Humza Yousaf's wife drops legal action against nursery, by Kathleen Nutt. Humza Yousaf's wife Nadia El Nakla has dropped her legal case against a Scottish nursery. The centre was being sued by Ms El Nakla for £30,000 damages for alleged discrimination against their daughter because she did not have a white-sounding name. It had previously said it would be robustly defending our staff and our business, and accused Ms El Nakla and Mr Yousaf of waging a vendetta against a small nursery. Today, the nursery announced that the action against it, which began in November 2021, had been dropped. Usha Fowdar, owner of Little Scholars Day Nursery, Broughty Ferry, Dundee, said, "Whilst we were 100% prepared to see Ms El Nakla in court, we are extremely pleased that this baseless legal action has been terminated. It bears repeating that despite some extremely misleading headlines and spurious allegations, the Care Inspectorate identified administrative processes for improvement which had nothing to do with discrimination because there never was any discrimination. Any attempt to twist this fact should be called out for what it is. Ms El Nakla has very sensibly opted to drop her legal action in the face of our determination to defend ourselves and our hard-working employees. Whilst I am pleased our employees will be spared the stress of appearing as witnesses, in one sense I'm also disappointed, as the court case would have been extremely revealing and I'm utterly confident we would have prevailed. Despite this vindication, it has been deeply upsetting to have spent almost 18 months and tens of thousands of pounds defending our small nursery against their false claims." Mr Yousaf and Ms El Nakla had applied for a place for their daughter at the nursery, but were turned down with the faculty claiming there was no space. But just 2 days later, a white friend of the couple was told there were spaces for her son on 3 afternoons a week. Mr. Yousaf then contacted the Daily Record, which carried out a sting operation on the nursery by submitting fake queries from a Muslim family and white family with the same results as before. Ms. Fowler hit out. It beggars belief that rather than pick up the phone to quickly resolve what was a simple misunderstanding, they colluded in a half-baked sting operation and then mounted a vicious and cynical campaign against us in the national media. What sort of people do that? Before Ms. El-Nakla pursued the legal case, she and her husband made a formal complaint to the Care Inspectorate. An investigation by the Care Inspectorate found the nursery did not promote fairness, equality and respect when offering placements. It was ordered to introduce consistent and robust systems to manage admissions requests after a complaint was upheld. In a statement released this afternoon, Mr. Yousaf and Ms. El-Nakla's solicitor, Arma Anwar, said the couple are loving parents who would do anything to protect their children. It was a tough decision, but as a mother and father, they believe it's the right one. They only ever wanted the nursery to accept the findings of the Independent Care Inspectorate investigation and for the nursery to make changes. The nursery's owner may wish to say that they were prepared 100% to go to court, but this was a joint agreement reached and on their acknowledgement of the findings of an independent investigation and implementing the necessary changes in full. The nursery, by their own admission, have acknowledged changes were required to make the admissions process more transparent and equitable. And that is the very least any young child is entitled to expect from an educational establishment in Scotland, no matter who their parent is or whatever their background. Nadia believes that as a mother she was justified in raising this legal action. She felt deeply hurt and hopes that as a result real change will take place. The matter is now at an end and there will be no further comment. This article was by Kathleen Nutt.
The Herald on the 7th of February and the Arts and Ends section. Glasgow Gorbals Boys artist reacts after statues found by Esther Tarnai. The artist who made the iconic Gorbals Boys statues says she is relieved after they were found. 2 of the 3 bronze figures were stolen yesterday from Glasgow's south side, where they were displayed in front of the St Francis Centre. Today they were spotted by ex-Gorbals resident Megan Gray, abandoned by a train line. New Gorbals Housing Association has confirmed that the artworks have been returned to its care. They were found alongside Kenny Hunter's couch potatoes. Until they are reunited, the 3rd statue will also be removed from the street. Liz Pendon, the local artist who created the Gorbals Boys sculpture in 2008, told the Glasgow Times, "I'm relieved to hear that the Gorbals Boys are to be brought back to the Gorbals community where they belong." Megan Gray said, "I walked past the Gorbals Boys every day for 2 years and recognised them from the train. I couldn't believe it. I'm glad they are going back." Fraser Stewart, director of New Gorbals Housing Association, said, "We are very thankful to Megan and delighted that both the Gorbals Boys and the couch potatoes are being returned to the community. Public and community art are central to the regeneration of the Gorbals, and they play a vital role in their celebration of the character and the history of the Gorbals." That was by Edda Tarnay. The Herald on the 7th of February and the Arts and Ends section. Issue of the day, Gillian Anderson Prince Andrew Netflix drama announced by Adam Miller. In 1887, the historian, politician and writer Lord Acton said, "Absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's certainly capable of corrupting your judgment." How else to explain Prince Andrew agreeing to that Newsnight interview? Once you've attained enough power, it can become impossible for those around you to say no. Challenge the boss and you're off the team. Andrew's PR advisor, Jason Stein, reportedly quitting shortly before the interview tells its own story. Andrew will presumably have been thinking, people listen to the royals. I'll go in the pro box, tell the plebs my excuse, and this will all blow over by next week. Over 3 years on, the announcement of a forthcoming Netflix drama suggests it wasn't quite the case. Prince Andrew on Newslight, refresh my memory. Virginia Jurif alleged in 2014 that the age of 17 convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficked her to Prince Andrew. In November 2019, the embattled prince sat down with Emily Maitlis for an hour-long interview about his relationship with Epstein. How did it go? Put it this way, it's been 3 years and 3 months since you were last able to think about Pizza Express without laughing. The prince came off as shifty and untrustworthy, becoming a national laughingstock and fodder for relentless memes based on his insistence that, on that particular day, I was at home, I was with the children, and I'd taken Beatrice to Pizza Express in Woking. And I didn't sweat at the time because I had suffered what I would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War, where I was shot at, and it was almost impossible for me to sweat. Did he weather the storm? Not exactly. 4 days later, Buckingham Palace confirmed that the prince was suspending his public duties for the foreseeable future, and within 6 months, Andrew had resigned from all his public roles. And now there's a Netflix drama. Scoop begins filming in London this month with X-Files and The Crown star Gillian Anderson playing Maitlis and the prince portrayed by the man in the High Castle's Rufus Sewell. Keeley Hawes will play Andrew's former private secretary Amanda Thirsk, while Newsnight producer Sam McAllister will be played by Billy Piper. What can we expect? Anderson and Hawes in particular are A-list television talent and bring serious prestige to the project. In a statement, director Philip Martin said, "It's a film about power, privilege and differing perspectives and how, whether in glittering palaces or high-tech newsrooms, we judge what's true." So he's saying, yes, the truth is out there. That was by Adam Miller. The Herald on this 7th of February in the Arts and Ents section. Exclusive. Summer Nights at the Bandstand Festival lineup revealed by Caroline Wilson. Punk legend Susie Sue will return to Scotland for the first time in 15 years to open Glasgow's Summer Nights at the Bandstand Festival. Regular Music has revealed this year's lineup for the award-winning event at Kelvin Grove Bandstand, now in its 8th year. The 13-date festival takes in almost 50 years of music, spanning genres including country, rock, punk and pop, and tickets go on sale on Friday at 9 a.m. Kicking off the 13-date festival on July 25 will be the former Susie and the Banshees frontwoman, who has announced her return to the live circuit. Formed in London in 1976, the band released 11 studio albums and had several UK top 20 singles, including Hong Kong Garden, Happy House, and Beatles cover Dear Prudence, which reached number 3 in the charts. AllMusic names Susie as one of the most influential British singers of the rock era. Her songs have been covered by Jeff Buckley, Tricky, and LCD Sound System, and sampled by Massive Attack and The Weeknd. American I'm Out of Love singer-songwriter Anastasia will perform the following night, July 26. The festival then takes a Scottish turn with folk rock band Cassidy taking to the stage on July 27, followed by Glasgow's Del Mitri, who will play 2 dates on August 2 and 3. Fans can expect a heartfelt performance from the frontman Justin Corey in his home city, and hits including Nothing Ever Happens and Always the Last to Know. Other festival highlights include Up the Junction legend Squeeze on August 5 and Las Vegas, who will perform on August 11. Regular said female artists had always played a prominent role in the festival, and this year was no exception. Pop Sophie Ellis Bextor, known for her effervescent live performances, will take to the bandstand stage on August 4, while Naughty's girl band Sugar Babes are also on the lineup. Mark Mackey, director of Regular Music, said, "We are delighted to be returning to the bandstand for another year of summer nights and bringing with us such stellar selection of world-class performers, including welcoming the iconic Susie back to play in Scotland for the first time in 15 years for our opening concert. The Del Godots and country duo The Shires will also appear." Since launching in 2014, the festival became a firm favourite with artists and music fans alike and scooped the UNESCO City of Music Best Live Event at the Scottish Music Awards in 2017. Tickets are available from Ticketmaster. And that was by Caroline Wilson.
From the Herald Scotland, published on the 7th of February 2023. The sports section. Michael Beale is building Rangers around Connor Goldson and Ben Davies. An article by Christopher Jack. The blueprint has always been to build from the back at Ibrox. Michael Beale now has the cornerstones of his Rangers team firmly in position. Beale started his first match as manager with a handful of defenders on the books, but 2 stand-in midfielders on the park. Rangers haven't looked back since, and 2 integral components of the side, Connor Goldson and Ben Davies, have gone from strength to strength as the relationship has flourished on both sides of the white line. Victory over Hibernian in middle of December was achieved with John Lundstrom and James Sands answering a call of duty as the wretched injury situation that plagued Giovanni van Bronckhorst seeped into the first days of new era. Rangers got away with it, but only just. When Leon King was ruled out at short notice, Galston phoned his boss and offered to play for the first time since hobbling off against Liverpool 2 months earlier. That act of selflessness was declined, and Davies was fit enough to make the bench and play the final 3 minutes as Beale marked his return to Ibrox with a win. Just days later, the task was even tougher. Goldson got through 90 gruelling minutes at Aberdeen with only a couple of sessions in the tank, and the man that had been pinpointed as his partner at the start of the campaign got another half an hour under his belt. A clean sheet in the win away to Ross County offered individual and collective positives, and the settled defensive line with James Tavernier and Borna Barisic either side, put in place for the win over Motherwell, has become the foundation upon which Beale has built his unbeaten run as boss. Had Goldson not suffered that cruel injury against Liverpool at Ibrox, the past could have been very different. It is the future that Beale can focus on now, though, as Goldson and Davies take off the matches and the victories and continue to show their worth in their own right, and as a relationship that has evolved and improved with time. Like he was for the first 4 years of his Rangers career, Goldson is the dominant figure at the heart of the defence. His partnership with Davies could have been formed before this term, but it is what the pair do going forward that matters most, as the vice-captain continues to lead by example alongside the latest figure to join him at the back. We looked at him for a long time, and then Liverpool had an injury crisis and went there, Beale said of Davies, who made a $4 million move from Anfield to Ibrox in the summer. We would have got gazumped, but obviously I've come back and he's here. He's a boy I was aware of because I'd watched a lot of videos under previous management team, so I was delighted to receive him, but obviously he was out injured for 3 or 4 weeks. I didn't really know what I was getting, but he is doing well. It's all about partnerships, isn't it? I think centre-half is all about the partnership. Connor Goldson has built big partnerships here during his time. First of all with Nico Katic, then with Philippe Helander, and then a really strong partnership with Leon Bolonga. He built another one with Calvin Bassey, and now he's building one with Davies. There's a time when Connor wouldn't be fit enough, but with our injury record this season, you're making me nervous talking about it. There is a train of thought which suggests that Beale would not have been back at Ibrox had Van Bronckhorst not suffered such dreadful misfortune in terms of injuries. By the end of his tenure, his squad was depleted and deflated as makeshift sides were outclassed in the Champions League and saw their Premiership ambitions suffer a series of costly blows. Goldson and Davies were fit and available too, late to save the Dutchman, but the returns to action were timely for Beale, and they are 2 of the first names on the team sheet right now, as John Suter continues his lengthy rehabilitation. Helander watches on from afar, and Liam King struggles to get a look in. It was a case of needs must in the early days of Beale's reign. He's thankful for the efforts of both, though as Goldson and Davis have played their part in ensuring Rangers have been able to keep the results and the momentum ticking over. These two guys didn't have a long rehab, Beale said. They were literally back training and the next day back in the team. You want to manage things, and that's probably been the one frustration I've had, that we've not really been able to breathe other than Motherwell at home. We haven't been able to rotate the way we would have wanted, move players out with 20 minutes to go. We've had to work really hard. That's why I hear people question the mentality, and I can't have that. I know where we're at as a group and what the boys have delivered for me since I came back to the club. I can't talk about before because I wasn't in the building. Since I've been back in, I have been delighted with the group. In time, the makeup of the defensive ranks that Beale has at Ibrox may well change. Goldson will be like he was during Beale's first stint in Glasgow under Steven Gerrard. The ever-present and the figure that leads by example, but his partner could be chopped and changed to suit the domestic or European requirements. Beale has refused to write off the Rangers' career of Helander and is yet to see what Suter is capable of in his side. King remains a prodigious talent, but the competition for places will increase after the summer transfer windows. Having 4 centre-back options would be a welcome position for Beale. He knows all too well just what life is like when the situation is different and the options are limited. Football doesn't wait for anyone, football moves on, Beale said, but you've seen that since Goldson has played with Davis, results have improved. That's because they are 2 proper centre-backs. In my first game, we had 2 midfielders at centre-half. If you look at not having Goldson, Helander, Davis and John Suter, then there's a reason why certain results come your way. If you look at the list of players that have been missing, you're asking others to stand up, and that's the conversations I've been having in here. I've asked them to stand up for each other, and they've done that. But every 3 days you can play again, and there's another challenge around the corner. The first weeks of Beale's management have been overwhelmingly positive in terms of results, but the fluctuation in performance levels still causes angst in the dugout and the stands. In time, both aspects must be combined. The Englishman has given himself a platform at least, as relationships are enhanced across the pitch and the Beale methodology takes hold. Rangers will become even more equipped to deal with all their Premiership counterparts throw at them each week. I've worked in a number of leagues now, and people always ask about our league here, Beale said. It's difficult. Let's be clear about that. In Europe, the teams play in front of you and you can go and press them. In Scotland, they make it about the red zones, the 2 ends of the pitch. They put the ball there. Every time there's a set to play, it comes in. That's a different kind of defending. That's defending under pressure. Every game is like a cup tie. And that article was written by Christopher Jack. You can contact Christopher on Twitter at CHRIS_JACK89. He's the senior Rangers writer. And the article has been read by myself, Alistair.
That concludes this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Tune Review and to tell your friends about our service.